I want to welcome everyone here at this service for Mrs. Helene Ohren, and also those of you attending the service via live stream. Officiating will be Rabbi Louis Camras. And just a gentle reminder, folks, if you're here present at the cemetery, if you have a cell phone, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. Following the funeral today, from approximately 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., the family will be gathering to begin their Shiva at the Continental Restaurant, which is 788 South Buffalo Grove Road in Buffalo Grove. And then the Shiva will resume in Cincinnati on Thursday and Friday. All that information is listed in the service folder as well as in memorial contributions. And it's also online on Chicago Jewish Funerals.
For those who are joining us virtually from Cincinnati, they'll also find the Shiva information on the Weil Kahn Funeral Home website as well. Shaviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini bal emot, lachen samach libi v'yagel kvodi, af besari yishkon lavetach, ki lo ta'azov nafshi lishol, lo titen chasidecha lirot shachat, todienu orech chayim, sof samachot at panecha ne'imot, b'mincha netzach. The words of the 16th Psalm: I have set the eternal before me, God is at my side. I shall not be moved. And therefore does my soul rejoice, for my being is secure. For you, O God, will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. From the words of the psalmist to the well-known words of Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a season and a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve, a time to dance, a time to throw stones, a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Today we come with the silence of our own private memories, of moments shared. And we come to speak and to share among us, the circles of family and friends and community. I want to begin with the words of the psalmist, Psalm 90. O God, you have been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and the world, from eternity to eternity, you are God. As for us, you turn us in contrition, saying, return, you mortals. For the days of our years are 70, or even by reason of strength 80 years. But 1,000 years in God's sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. So teach us, therefore, to number our days, that we might acquire a heart of wisdom. May your favor, O God, be upon us. Establish the work of our hands, that it may long endure. It is really an honor for me to be here with you, Helene's family, to be here as rabbi and as friend, and to share in the depth of love and gratitude that we collectively feel among the circles of family and friends and community who were fortunate to share in the abundant love and goodness of heart that Helene brought to the circles of community in Cincinnati, her adopted home, to her friends of so many years and such closeness who became like family, and certainly to each of you, her family, gathered together here just as you embraced Helene throughout all your days, and just as you did in the steady stream of love and gratitude and care that she felt from each of you in these last months, as you all knew that the end was drawing near. This is, of course, a time of loss and grief, as we note all that has been lost with Helene's passing. Her capacity for love and care of family and circles of friends means that losing her, losing your wife and mother and grandmother, leaves you, leaves us with sadness. And yet at the same time, it should also be noted that the legacy of Helene's love and the fullness of her heart and her love of life leaves us with a legacy that transcends loss. So even as we are here together to grieve and to mourn, we also gather in the harvest of memories and the legacy of her love, and all that remains with us is a deep measure of gratitude for all that she was and all that she gave to us. The ancient rabbis in their Talmudic wisdom taught that the righteous are in no need of a monument or a memorial, for their deeds are a memorial. Translated into the context of our own understanding, while none of us is perfect, without blemish or shortcomings, each of us also writes a legacy every day with our hearts, our capacity for caring, our love, our values. And that legacy is written in the most resounding and enduring ways through our deeds. If we live our deeds and express our values every day of our lives, then after our death, our legacy does indeed endure. Our values continue in those that we taught and loved and that which we modeled, and the imprint of our small deeds becomes a lasting legacy. I believe that Helene's deep satisfaction with her life is a perfect reflection of the beautiful ways in which she lived her values of love and family, faith and friendship and community. In the words of the ancient psalmist, she knew her own heart of wisdom, her ability to know what mattered most in her life, and with it her capacity to shape her deeds and her days with that North Star of those values. What a blessing to reach the end of one's life with no regrets for how one lived, with the sense of fulfillment that she would not have done anything different, and that her life had been a gift received with gratitude and with love. And so today, even as we mourn, even as we reflect on all that we have lost, we also gather in the deepest sense of all that we have been given. And I believe that the greatest tribute to Helene's values is you, her family. Because as the psalmist said, you were the work of her hands, and that endures. So it is a privilege to be able to be here with you and to use these moments as well to call upon members of her family, Charlie and Rebecca, and then words as well from Ronnie and Perry to be shared among us. Charlie?
Thanks. Thank you, Rabbi Camrus. So I just wanted to share a story about Grandma. And this is a story that Grandma used to tell me and was fond of telling me from time to time. So when I was around 4 years old, my parents, who are here, decided that it was time for me to stop using a pacifier, which in our house we called, what? A schnookie, yeah. And so the next time we were in Cincinnati to visit Grandma and Papa, I came into Grandma's bedroom and I asked her for a private word. Apparently I told her that I had to give up my schnookies, and I asked her to keep them safe for me because I had to give them up. She dutifully put them in a dresser drawer, and she kept them there for the next 25 years. And I think they're still probably there now. And she kept them just in case I might need them. Grandma liked to tell this story because it showed the trust that I had in her even as a little kid. And Grandma, I've always trusted you, and I know that you're still keeping me safe in the warmth of your embrace. I love you forever, Grandma.
Hello. Hi. I'm Rebecca, my grandma Helene's baby granddaughter. I just want to share a few words about my grandma. My grandmother was a generous woman, specifically with her family. Among the things that she gave her grandchildren were annual boxes of Grater's cookies, which after many years of fretting about how to get them to their destination safely, she would pre-open the boxes and stuff tissue paper in with the cookies in order to prevent breakage. She would send cards, packages, letters, and texts with frequency. And looking back through my text with her over the last few days, I found that that most texts from her fit in two categories. There's the have you gotten where you're going, are you home safe category, and the are you feeling better from your ailment, sickness, or injury category. My grandmother would share stories about her older siblings, Sam, Florence, and Sadie, who doted on her as the baby of the family. And she also recently, I don't think my papa's gonna like me saying this, but she recently recalled the New Year's party that her parents attended on December 31st, 1937, and how her mother had said, what could possibly happen, and then she happened. My grandma gave her time, energy, and love to the animals of the family. She made and fed scrambled eggs to Robinson's dog, Mishka, when they visited Winding Way, and she allegedly adored our late dog, Cosmo, even though he peed on her carpet and was not invited back. She said, in September, she said to me that she did not blame Cosmo for this unfortunate accident. He was a lovely dog. She blamed my parents. My grandma and papa traveled around the world together and would bring us back gifts, photos, and stories from their travels. They started their married life in Minneapolis, 3.8 miles from where I live now. And I visited their apartment building.
over the weekend, where they, again, allegedly lived underneath a prostitute. They traveled around Europe to China and to St. Martin for many years. And despite seeing much of the world, my grandma's favorite places were either on her wicker couch in the sunroom, napping, where she spent the majority of her time in hospice and where she died, or on the couch in the den next to my papa holding hands. My grandmother could be harsh when disappointed, but would never allow that to keep her from sharing her love and praise. She adored her daughter-in-laws, my mom Alyssa and my Aunt Victoria, who held her close to their heart for all of her days. She was enamored with her son's partners, her other daughters-in-law, Rebecca and Sandy, who gave her peace of mind by choosing to spend their lives with her dear children, and who caretook for her with deep love and affection. My grandma treasured us, her grandchildren. There's not much to elaborate on there. She loved us, and she loved our partners for loving us. She was delighted by Maddie and Blake's marriage and by gaining Maddie as a granddaughter. She relished her time with Jacob and Carolyn, spent cozy in her dinner around the kitchen table, and we will really surely miss her at Charlie and Stephanie's wedding in August. She took me aside when Charlie and Stephanie got engaged and told me in her grandma way that she had always known that Stephanie and Charlie were right for each other. Stephanie showed Grandma a picture of her wedding dress as soon as she chose it. My grandma cherished her sons, Perry and Ronnie. She sung their praises and believed that they hung the moon. Nothing made her happier than being close to her children and their partners. Thank you, Dad and Uncle Ronnie, for caring for Grandma and giving her so much joy. There are many, many things to thank my grandma for. My touch of neuroses, my bunions, every outfit I ever wore on the first day of school, and my dad. A friend lost her mother-in-law earlier this fall, and she's been holding Grandma in her thoughts. When I told her about my grandma's death, she told me that being a good descendant is like being a parent in reverse, loving backwards in time. So here's to that. I love you, Grandma.
How important it is that loving words of tribute and gratitude would come as well, not only from Helene's grandchildren, but from her sons, from Ronnie and from Perry, whose care for her, especially in these last months, but throughout the years, and the many, many trips they made to Cincinnati, sometimes on a moment's notice, speak of the measure of that love. I am sharing these words, which Ronnie wrote on his behalf. There are four things that come to mind as I think about my mother. Lately, not surprisingly, I have been thinking that my mom always had very strong opinions about what she liked and didn't like, and in no sense was everything what she liked, except that she always said unflinchingly and without hesitation, before and after she was on the decline, that she had the very best life, and that if it were possible for her to do so, she would live exactly the same life again. She really meant it, and I really believed it. The second related thing I talk about is that, to my mind, above all else, she would live exactly the same life again because of my dad. I know of no stronger bond than her bond with my dad. If it's out there, I haven't seen it yet. They were exceptionally tight unit with an exceedingly tight bond, very much in love, very palpably in love, very expressive of that love, almost embarrassingly so, always near each other, usually right next to each other, and usually touching each other, sort of frisky. I know she loved all of us very, very much, endlessly, it seemed. Perry, me, our spouses, our partners, her grandchildren, their partners. But to me, there was and is nothing like my mom and dad, totally intertwined. The third thing I would speak about is that they had and still have so many deeply loved longtime friends who are much more like family to her, to my parents, and to Perry and me. Maybe owing to the fact, at least in part, that their relatives stayed back in Chicago and they moved to Cincinnati and built a family there. I want to say, where these comments are delivered here in Chicago and where the Cincinnati folks may not be present. So maybe this is less important for the Chicago crowd. But one of those things I keep thinking about is my parents' broad circles of friends, who they loved and who loved them back for so long. My longtime partner Sandy and I have nothing like that and marvel at what they had all of the time. The fourth thought that comes to mind is that my parents have strong, liberal, progressive values, and my mom very much recognized that we live in a difficult world. For some, it's an especially unkind, if not unjust world. She believed you can make a difference and that positive change is possible with love, joy, hope, empathy, and some grit. In part because of what was so meaningful to her, I think Perry's work as CEO of Jewish Family Service of Metro Detroit was especially meaningful to her and a source of great pride. And not to shortchange any of us, I think my daughter's Blake's work in public health, focusing on women's rights and reproductive health, especially among displaced refugees, Blake's wife Maddie's work in public health, focusing on improving health care for people in the criminal justice system, and Perry's daughter Rebecca's work coordinating and staffing sexual health information and services for Minnesota youth, focusing on trans youth, resonated with and was very meaningful to my mom. It was her family doing good stuff that reflected her core values. There is so much more, but just these four alone speaks of the measure of her character and her love. And now we'll call upon Perry.
There's a little more, mostly not redundant, hopefully. Thanks. So I want to cover many things about my mom, and I want to acknowledge that I'm not going to talk much about mom and dad's relationship because you just heard that from Ronnie. And I don't want to be too big of a mushball. Know, though, that I know that I'm omitting the most important thing. Yours and mom's bond. We just covered that thing. I was talking to my cousin Lynette the other day, and she said something like, last of a generation. Norma Helene Singer, my mom, was the last of her generation. Rose Saul and Myers Singer, her parents, were born a long, long time ago, far, far away. Were born in the 1890s in Russia and Poland. They immigrated to the United States via England and married. My mother, as my daughter said, was the oops child, born in 1938. Mom was closer in age to several nieces and nephews, here with us are Lynette, Carol, and Mitchell, than to Florence, Sadie, and Sam, 15, 20, and 22 years older than her. We grieve my mother's death today while acknowledging the end of that generation. My bubby and papa's children are gone, most of whom, with their spouses, are buried here. The Singer family was poor, and they had everything they needed. Gender roles and all norms were radically different and not that much up for debate. My mother married my father when she was 18 years old. Instead of her going to Northwestern, they moved to Minneapolis, and she helped Dad afford his master's in chemical engineering. Go Gophers, Sky Yuma. My mom was very proudly and effortlessly a Jew. She grew up in a kosher home, but learning and doing the religion of Judaism beyond holiday observance was not what they did. Mom told the story over and over and over again, I'm going to tell it again here, that her parents would take her out on Saturday afternoons, Shabbos, to a nearby restaurant, and she would have shrimp cocktail. An immigrant family wanting their child to be American. She kept a Jewish home, she raised us Jewishly, and she never questioned it. She simply was Jewish. It was who she was as a person, as part of a people. Maybe this was generational too. Mom was a homemaker. I never stopped to actually analyze that word, and reflexively would be judgmental about the word homemaker. And thinking about it, however, in the last 3 days, I am awed at how my mom made every house she lived in into a home. Everything had its place. Oh my. Things were tidy and always clean. And dinner, while never really fancy, was good, and at the same time from scratch, usually without a recipe and with a tossed salad. I remember an electric frying pan. Sorry, I'm going deep here. That happened on the kitchen counter once a week or so. For some reason, I'm not sure why, she used an electric frying pan. I didn't know why that was better than a skillet on the stovetop. But nonetheless, round steak or salmon patties or whatever Sally or Harriet or Jackie might have been making in their kitchens in the 1970s appeared in that damn electronic frying pan. Dinner was regular and reliable time. Dad would always finish the salad. He still does finish the salad. His grandkids secretly take videos of that when they're at home, when they're having dinner, and then they share it with their cousins and their siblings. Papa, Grandpa, he has two names, Papa and Grandpa, finishing the salad. I'm pretty sure the electric frying pan is in their pantry now. Is it so around, Dad? Yeah, sure, Ethel. Dusty, though. While times changed and travel and restaurants were more a part of their life in the last decades, Mom cooked till the end. She almost completely, I don't know if you all know this, she almost completely lost her sense of taste many years ago, but still derived great pleasure in cooking for the two of them. One of my daily questions to my parents in the last many months was what they were going to be having for dinner. While Mom was in hospice, this was once again really the one dependable time of day that they two were fully together. And Dad was always excited about it. And it was usually something taken from the freezer that Mom had made and put away for later. Sweet and sour meatballs, rolled cabbage, barbecue beef, French onion soup. There's still actually, I was looking in the freezer the other day, there's still a few things that Mom made that are still in the freezer. I don't know what happens with those. While Mom sold real estate, she also volunteered for a living. The earliest volunteer gig she has was at Jewish Family Service in Cincinnati with teenagers in the 1960s. Then came Principal Joe Ireland's Los Centerville Elementary School, 2 doors from her home on Elbrook, now a Jewish high school for girls, where Mom spearheaded a tutoring program. At the same time, she got involved with Council, the National Council of Jewish Women, doing many things that fit her politics well, and where she was able to be the belle of the ball, the angel ball. That's for my father and brother and people listening at home. Later in life, she was volunteering at Rabbi Kamras's Wise Temples, taking turns at hosting unhoused families through an interfaith hospitality network, and a homeless child, someone who we would call a homeless child, a child who happened to be unhoused, sat in her lap and essentially melted her, and then she got more involved in that organization, which is called Found House Interfaith Housing Network. She upped her volunteering and became a passionate board member and proud supporter. Mom believed in helping, and she did, like Ronnie said, or Lewis read. In September and October, 3 months ago, she was still writing postcards for the Democrats to voters in Georgia trying to influence the election results. Not sure exactly where this fits in. My mom wasn't into games and she was not athletic, to the point where she could not ride a bike nor could she swim. I never thought about that till later, but what kind of person doesn't swim or ride a bike? That was my mom. However, mom loved playing bridge, and I think she was pretty good at it from what she told us. Early on, and for decades, they played monthly on Saturday night with Mary and Glenn Winus. We called them Aunt Mary and Uncle Glenn. Both couples emigrated from Minnesota for Procter & Gamble in the late 1950s. Later in the 1970s was Friday night bridge with Sally and Mel Gillette, always climaxed with angel food cake because of Mel's high cholesterol. Mom had her Tuesday afternoon bridge game with her friends, which went on forever. And most recently, I think emanating in the pandemic and happening a little while in hospice, online bridge with the Dunskers, the Snyders, and with the Kirstings. I'm almost done. Mom had lots of friends, often, as you've heard, as couples with my dad, but I want to talk about two of her very close girlfriends who died before her. This is going to make me cry a little bit too. As predicted, Diane Essig sadly died in 1979. Mom, I think, was 41 years old, or it was right before her 41st birthday, a youngster. Oh my gosh. Along with lots of other losses in her life, this was one very heartbreaking one for her. Ronnie, another Ronnie, Diane's youngest, wrote recently, "I know my kids met your mom but didn't really know her. I tried to explain how much she was a part of our lives, and we, with you and your family, we have we have some dear friends that have become family here in Utah, and the best way I could describe," page 3, last page. "The best way I could describe her was that she and the Ohrens were the Shapiros of my youth. They immediately understood. She was my mom's closest friend, which made seeing her throughout the years even more special." Steve, Diane's oldest, wrote, I sure hope that there's a heaven so that she and her mom will have eternity to spend hanging out together." Kenny, the milk-drinking middle son, was especially close to Mom, as he and I were and are still dear friends. When I told Kenny Mom was in hospice, he flew up from Florida as soon as he could. Mind you, Mom was not receiving any friends at that time and barely wanted family in the house. But Kenny, not a problem. And regarding not seeing friends, all of Mom's friends, of course, wanted to come over, bring dinner, etc. Kenny's stepmom, Joanne, one of those close friends since the early 1980s, was on the A list, and Kenny didn't know how to handle telling Joanne that it was he who was welcome and not her. On the day he was arriving from Florida to Cincinnati, 3 weeks into hospice, I got a text from Kenny saying, "Guess who saw Joanne today?" I was confused as my parents weren't receiving guests. Kenny said that Joanne was getting her hair done, and in walked Coach and Iggy. My parents, that's what he called my parents. In walked Coach and Iggy. My mom had not left home in weeks, but she had an appointment at what my dad still calls the beauty parlor. And sorry, friends, a good dye and a haircut beats your roasted chicken, dinner, and a visit. Sorry. Second friend. I was born into an apartment on Kellerman in Gulf Manor, and there were many families from that building and on that street who were friends forever after that. Sonny Hoffman, who later became Sonny Sirkin, was my mom's dearest friend. They were peas in a pod, very close sisters. They shared everything. They talked daily as far as I could tell. All I want to say about this is that they were close, and Mom lived and modeled closeness and sharing life with others. She wasn't perfect, but she had close friends. When Sonny died many years ago, it feels like 6-7 years ago, it almost downed my mother. She really never fully recovered from that, turning almost exclusively, not exclusively, but almost exclusively into family for the rest of her life. I once heard, or maybe I made up, that the sign of being a successful parent is not having children. Anyone could have children, but when your children have children, that's when you know you have been a successful parent. Hear that, Howard? Where's Howard? Go figure, right? Howard's a grandfather, can't get over that. My mom was successful in many ways, but mostly as grandma, as you heard mostly, I think, from Rebecca. Robinson, Blake, Charlie, Caleb, and Rebecca were the world to her. That, of course, is to be expected. What isn't always the case is the grand's devotion to and love for and connection with my mom. Not only as children, but until the very end and moving forward forever. My mom had a good life, and Ronnie and I and our children were blessed to have been given life because of her, and all of us have had better lives with her. We now move on sadly, without her presence, and gratefully with her, knowing she's always there, always loving us.
With those beautiful tributes, words from the heart that enter to the heart, we give thanks for the love and the legacy, for all that endures in the circles of family and friends and community that were enriched so deeply by the life of Helene Ohren. We give thanks to you, O God, for the fullness of her life, not only the fullness of years, but the strength of meaning and the fulfillment that she knew, and the gifts that she shared of her heart so freely with each of us. Zichrona livracha, may her memory be that blessing for you, her family, and for all of us who loved her. Amen. Let me ask us now if we would please rise for the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamse Menucha Nidchona Nachat Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utorim Kozoa Harakia Maz Hirim, Et Nishmat Hena Bat Meir Vorachelea Shahalcha La'olama, Baal Harachamim Yastireha Besetek Nafav La'olamim, V'yitzro B'tzrachayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, Tanuach B'Shalom Amish Gava, V'nomar Amen. O compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence unto Helene Ohren, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. The Lord is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And we say together, Amen. The words of the 23rd Psalm. Adonai ro'ilo echzar, binot deshe yar bitzeni almei minechot yenachaleni nafshi yeshovev, yanchini b'ma'at tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha mishantecha hema yanachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosir vayah. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yamei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai lo'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me to lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, and restores my soul. You guide me, O God, in straight paths for your name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod, your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We conclude with the words of the Kaddish prayer, a praise of thanks to God for the goodness of life, for the life that we're given, words in which we join and draw strength from the generations as we speak together, the words of the Kaddish, which are, I believe, in the pamphlet that you've gotten. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabam. Be'alama divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olomei amayam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shemei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alama v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemayim v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Lech ki shalachacha Adonai, go your way, for God has called you. Lech v'Adonai yiyeh imach, go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha kavod Adonai ya'asvecha, may your goodness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. Amen. This now concludes the service. We thank you all for being here. those joining virtually as well. And for those who wish to place some soil, some earth into the ground, you are welcome to do so at this time.
Anyone else? Husband's family want to come forward? Stay behind the wall for your safety. Please don't walk on the wood. Anyone else that would like to participate?
This road here, overall park, if it goes down that way, you're gonna see a park on the right side. A park.
Okay.
And that's where it's just in there.
Stay behind the wall for your safety. Anyone that would like to use the tail of earth can
I
step
was at a
forward.
funeral 3 weeks ago, right in front of me. It's so wonderful. And that one, I had dinner with her.
Right time.
Saturday night.
He wasn't
Died
really cooking with it.
Tuesday.
I said it as a joke. I've never known him to be the Galvin gourmet.
I make myself ham
All right.
Soup, grilled cheese.
We want to have double dip. There you go.
We're going to Continental, right?
Yeah.
Well, when Dana called to town, she goes, and then there's some restaurant. I go, oh, Continental. She goes, how did you know?
But
I go, unfortunately, that's the thing.
you know how often I see it.
I'm going to just walk on the
Okay, I don't really want to go. I don't need to go.
If it's not too far, I'm going. I don't care.
I do. These are Lynn's kids. It's been a long time, obviously.
I know, long
time.
times 5. Yeah. They go from 3.5 months to 8 years.
She's actually 4 months now.
Okay. Well, you get closer to it. I don't know. 6 years. They'll be coming that day. They'll be coming next week. No, it's in the cars.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, how did you guys get to it?
No. If you see them, let me know because I haven't seen them. That's okay.
When did you come to town?
You're going over there?
Oh.
Yeah.